This project serves to inform and empower those that are living with HIV in navigating the current criminalization laws in Ohio. We hope that it serves as an educational tool for health departments, community agencies, medical providers, and other entities that work in our communities. At times, we find that there is a lack of consistent communication across the state, informing individuals of the laws and offering tangible ways to stay safe. While we continue to work to modernize these laws, we hope that this tool will provide essential information while also offering hope and empowerment to those that view it. Thank you to everyone who made this project possible.
There are 6 laws in Ohio that punish folks who are living with HIV. We have a felonious assault law, solicitation, loitering to engage in solicitation, prostitution, harassment with a bodily substance, and selling or donating blood. So let's talk about what these laws are in plain language. Prostitution is the actual act of trading something of value for sex. Solicitation, on the other hand, is the attempt to trade something of value for sexual favors. This could even be a conversation about that. Loitering to engage in solicitation is different. This is when you're in a public space and you intend to have a conversation soliciting to trade sex for something of value. Harassment with a bodily substance, on the other hand, has gone by 2 different names in the past. Harassment by an inmate and harassment with a bodily substance. It's the same law. You don't have to be an inmate in order to be charged with this, but this one means annoying or threatening somebody with your fluids. This could be any fluid. So urine, feces, blood, semen, spit. Spit counts. That one's a big one. And selling or donating contaminated blood. This is a law that's on the books prohibiting someone who is living with from selling or donating blood, plasma, organs, any other kind of tissue. The big one that we have on the books is felonious assault. This one is a little bit tricky, so I want to explain the 3 different things that you as a person living with are prohibited from doing under this law. So the first one is having sex with someone without disclosing your HIV status beforehand. As a note, the law really defines sex very broadly. So there are many different acts that are considered under this definition. The second thing is having sex with someone when you, the person who's living with, know or think that the other person can't understand the significance of your HIV status. And the third piece is having sex with someone who's younger than 18 years old if they're not your spouse. Those are the 3 things that are prohibited under the felonious assault law. And as you can guess, if you violate them, it is a felony.
Hello, my name is Brian C. Jones. I'm a person who's been thriving with an AIDS diagnosis for 39 years. The advice what I would give is to first take it slow. First gain acceptance of your status, a healthy acceptance of your status, because only then can you move forth in a positive way, all puns intended. I think you have to have a healthy acceptance of your status in order to share in a healthy way with someone else that you're a person living with HIV.
My name is Naeem O'Neill. I am a medical social worker by profession. I work with patients who are living with HIV. I am also a cisgender woman with living with HIV. For my patients, I always tell them to have a plan, not to wait until you get in a situation and you have to decide if you're going to disclose or not. You really need to do that up front. You need to, if you have a partner, maybe coming and telling your social worker or your provider and having a conversation in that climate so that there's a record of it, because you have to be able to create a record. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but you at least have to have a plan.
But I feel like if you tell them from the get-go, like as you're talking, like, you know how we have these conversations, like, what's your favorite color? What do you like to do on the weekends? What do you like to, mixing it with that in. Well, just to tell you off the rip, so there won't be no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm diagnosed with HIV, but I'm undetectable. And relieve with that. And if they stop texting you there, that's their loss. If they continue to text you there, well, then at least you got the hardest part out the way.
There's something called cell sorting where you can choose early on to only date other people who are living with HIV. Even then, you still must share your status with that person. Also, another tidbit of advice I would give is it's easier probably to start a conversation with someone who may be accessing PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylactics, which is a pill that they take that for people who are not living with HIV, that builds up their immune system. So it may be easier to have that conversation with someone who's on PrEP because they know about HIV and they are taking proactive measures to protect themselves.
It was a whole community out there, the LGBT community that I was in, where later on down the line, I figured out that all of them had it. And I didn't at the time. So when I was new and I told them, how everybody surrounded me with open arms and things like that. So when I finally told the first friend that I told, it kind of healed me in a sense, because I felt like nobody would ever understand, because my family, I knew they wouldn't understand at that time, especially when they didn't even accept the fact that I was trans. So to come back and tell them that their oldest granddaughter or their oldest daughter has this, to tell that friend, and that friend be like, it's okay, I got it too. It made me feel better.
It's a hard situation to share your status. So I would say there's never really a right time to share your status. So just take your time, especially in light of social media. A lot of times it's easier to share your status with someone through social media or a dating site or something like that. Because if there is a right time, I would say it's better sooner than later to share your status.
At first, I didn't accept it. When I first figured out I did, I kept injecting myself with more drugs, more alcohol, because I wanted to get rid of myself. But also it's because I didn't love myself enough. Coming from a family who didn't love me because I was trans, or didn't want to accept me because I was trans and I was different, and they didn't understand it because they had never seen it eye to eye. Once I accepted that side of me, and then now I'm able, since I'm dealing with those traumas and I got those fixed, and now I feel beautiful in my skin and my family accepts me now, it was easier for me to now take on the other task, which was to accept the fact that I do have HIV. I got on my meds, and within 4 weeks, my titers went down. Within the next month, I was undetectable. And getting to that undetectable part is what made me actually accept the fact that I have it, because now I can't give it to nobody. I was always afraid without my medications that I would give it to somebody. I'm gonna make sure that every day I wake up in that morning to take that med. Every time I go to sleep, I'm gonna make sure that I take that med. And as long as I continue to take it and continue to see my doctors, I smile every day, because now I feel like I'm feeling more normal again. I'm feeling normal again. I don't feel bad about it no more because I'm undetectable.
The steps that I took to be comfortable with disclosing my status and saying that I am living with HIV. Because you being comfortable and you understanding what you have and what you're living with goes a long way to supporting yourself, to making yourself strong, and to not care, but to be able to handle what other people may say, because you can't predict what they're going to say. And then you can also sense who is good to share with. I didn't share my status in the beginning with everyone. I think my sister was the first person that I shared my status with. So picking that first person to kind of bounce the idea off of and talking to them about, how did that feel? Who do you think I should share my status with? And even in a relationship, if you just met someone, you don't necessarily have to do that. You'll know when it's right.
I would say the best way to protect yourself is to have an open and candid conversation with someone first. Document that conversation in some form or fashion, even though we know that text messages are not necessarily admissible in court, depending on the judge or the legal system in which you may present it. The best way is to take someone to your doctor's appointment or your case manager's appointment, because they can document these meetings in the case notes, and then there will be something tangible. So the best way to protect yourself is to be open and honest about your status as you can. First to yourself, because if you're doing what you need to do to protect yourself, meaning being adherent to your medication, being adherent to your doctor's appointments, then you're virally suppressed. And you don't have to worry about transmitting HIV to someone else. But that doesn't take away the fact that the law says now that you have to disclose your status. It's not necessarily transmitting HIV, it's the fact that you have to disclose your status. If I am comfortable with my status and I share my status with you, I'm responsible for putting it out there, but I'm not responsible for how you take it or how you receive it. Also understand that when you tell someone your status, it's almost like you're hearing it for the first time. So you have to allow people a chance to process this information. It took me 10, 15 years to even say to myself in a room by myself that I had an AIDS diagnosis. And because that's all I've known was an AIDS diagnosis, because I was diagnosed. I first we started having symptoms in 83. I got my diagnosis in 84. But it took me a long time to gain a healthy acceptance of my status.
When you're sharing your status, less is more when you deal with the police. You don't want them to be given a fruit. You want them to have to work for that fruit. And so there's no reason that you have to share your status with the police. If they have a suspicion, then they need to work for it. And I think that it's very good for us or people living with to not share, because you have an opportunity to be incarcerated. And so you don't want to help the police. You want them to work for it. First, be comfortable with sharing your status with yourself. And I know that's kind of weird, but looking in the mirror, saying who I am out loud, sometimes can help you with your mental well-being.
I have learned that it's better to share earlier than later. And one thing I want to point out, with a dating app, just because you share your status in your profile does not mean that you have disclosed your status, so to speak, because you have to prove that the person actually read your profile. And I prefer to say share your status as opposed to disclose your status, because disclosure is also a stigmatizing word. The definition of disclosure is new or secret information. And your status should not be a secret. It is yours to share. And this also empowers you, knowing that there's no shame in being a person living with HIV. I have to have a healthy acceptance of my status. Before I can have a healthy relationship with anything or anybody else, I've got to have a healthy relationship with myself. That means I have to be comfortable with understanding that I am a person living with HIV. And I said living with HIV because I am more than just my status. So I've got to truly understand that and respect myself and have forgiven myself when moving forward in any type of relationship.
My situation has been so healing for me only because I'm not gonna lie, me being young and being a part of the LGBTQ at a younger age, I want to say around 12 or 13, I was already out there being very, very fast. But I've never had that situation. It's always been with me and anybody that I be with, I'd be like, let's go get tested first. We go get tested and we swap tests. When I'm talking to people that's younger than me and people that's older than me, I always tell them at my different groups that I go to, the AA, the even these type of groups that I do, like the HIV groups that I do here, I always tell people, go get tested with them. even, well, they already know that I have HIV. It's not that. It's so many more things that other people can have that you just don't know. Herpes, any dango thing. And then it would give you so much more, so you would be so much more at peace with yourself. If y'all both get tested, y'all show each other your charts and everything. You go at the same day, go back there, and when they come back with the test results, you show them. I bet you'll feel so much more better with doing things and being more open in that situation.
Everything that you do is about you. It's not about being selfish. It's about being who you are and being true to yourself. Everybody doesn't need to know that you're positive. You have to decide who you want to share your status with. And just because you're positive doesn't mean that you lose your rights and you lose who you are. Um, you're a person who is living with an illness. It's an illness that has a lot of discrimination with it, but it's an illness nonetheless. And you have to figure out what's important to you.
I think when you make the choice to share your status with someone, I think you need to ask yourself, why do you want to share your status? And then also do another list to say why you chose not to share, or why you are reluctant to share your status with this person. And look at the two lists and see if the reasons for sharing your status outweighs your reluctance to share your status. Because sometimes if you look at it, you'll see that it may be too soon to share your status with this person. And you've also got to look at the reasons why you are fearful or reluctant to share your status. These may be reasons that you may need to work out first before you're comfortable with sharing your status with that individual. You always want to share your status in a safe, open location. You don't want to be in a situation where it's hard for you to have a clear route of exit, because things may not go as well as you want them to go, or there may be hiccups along the way in sharing your status with this person. So you want to make sure you're in a safe location, which is a public location, somewhere where you could easily make your exit without any interruptions. So I would advise you to do that.
So a newly diagnosed person, I always tell them that you still have some of the decisions to make about your life. You still have a life, and you have to decide what you want to do with that life. HIV is not going to affect what you do unless you let it. It's an illness, just like most illnesses. And the only difference in this illness and other illnesses truly is the discrimination behind it. And as a society, we've never had healthy conversations about sex. I think that that's the reason why it's such a taboo to talk about it. Because, you're taught you're not supposed to share that. No one's supposed to know how many partners you had. And with my clients, I ask them those questions because it could be related to what you want to do, how you want to do it. But I just don't think that people need to give up their lives just because they're HIV positive, and no one can make you do that unless you choose to do it yourself.